Cool. Hey, everyone. June all community meeting. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching afterwards online, if that's what you're doing. We get a lot of offline views of everything, and that's the magic of the internet. We'll talk about some things today. Normal agenda with a special kind of deep dive into the communications and information we've been sending around planning for in-person events, but otherwise the normal agenda, and open up for Q&A at the end as always. But if you have something that comes up as we go through the topics, feel free to speak up. Obviously, happy to talk through those things right away. Just a reminder, core values: transparency, safety, community, and action. We've been thinking a lot about this with respect to the in-person stuff, which we'll go through. And also just a lot of thinking lately about how we continue to expand and grow the community, both with in-person activities beginning, but also and continue to grow out these the committees that are associated with how we make decisions and move forward with Highwire. So more on that as we go throughout the slides here. One of the things, and it will be linked in the slides in the document as well, is some thinking we've been recently doing and putting together a strategy for the summer. We've seen a significant level of interest and speed across the US, at least, in terms of making in-person activity part of things that improv theaters and other places do again. That's obviously always been on our list of things to do, to add in-person activity to our online activity. And it's kicked off a bunch of committee work and further investigation into what makes sense for us, with kind of the core ideas here. And there's a lot more detail in that document that kind of goes committee by committee what the implications of having in-person activity are. But moving towards a hybrid model, focusing first on shows, as we said from the beginning. We want to plan for and have in-person activities when it's safe and makes sense to do so. We want to do that in a measured capacity, not going to just go full in and do 7 days a week of shows in person, obviously. And we're also not going to take away the online component of the work that we've been doing, connections we made, and the opportunities to stay connected and provide access to improv, both in and out of Baltimore online, is really important to us. So it will be a hybrid model. I'm open to other terms than hybrid. I've been reminded that that may be a less than fun word for teachers in particular, and does not necessarily exactly reflect what we're doing. We're doing both in person and online. That's the goal. And we're recognizing that that's going to be a lot of effort. A lot of new stuff is going to go into making things work in person. So we're looking to make space and time for that transition, and potentially pulling back on total volume of activity as we go into season 4. Both on the shows and the kind of education workshop class side of things. And if people feel like they can get the same number of things in, that's great. But I think making it a clear part of the strategy that it's okay to pull back, it's okay to do less total as we take on the additional work of figuring out how to transition in person makes a lot of sense. And that's also so that we don't rush into things. We also want to set positive precedents for our in-person activity, taking care to consider things that we've said from the beginning, like accessibility, payment models for staff and performers, choice and transparency in venues, et cetera. Just because people are going back to in-person doesn't mean we have to rush to go back first and do it fastest. We want to do it right. And we want to use this opportunity to set good precedents like we did with some of our online activity. And again, realizing that means investing in new areas, space, marketing for in-person things, development, donations, etc. More detail on the work that we've been doing to plan for in-person events. Again, there's a living document that was sent around and posted online that we've gotten some good feedback on, but nothing kind of that really changes the approach. Something we'll look at closely, especially as national and local guidance from government and health officials, progresses on COVID-19. There's a good bit of data in there about cases and vaccination rates nationally and locally as well. And the summary of that is we're going to keep providing that information, make sure it's available to all people who are potentially audience members, performers, tech staff, et cetera. And then provide specific information regarding how each venue that we might end up working with is dealing with things, from everything from capacity to procedures, and what the options are. Understanding that until we have our own space, we're not going to have 100% of the control over how operations in person work, right? We're going to have to be partnering with different venues that we trust, and providing the information about what those venues are doing with respect to bringing in-person events to the public are. And so I think the best thing we can do there is provide that information as transparently as possible and give performers as many choices as possible when deciding what to do, including, again, keeping the online show option available to anybody who wants to submit for season 4. Expect that will be expanded at a methodical pace, and reevaluate regularly. In the Artistic Council meeting last weekend, we were throwing around the idea of roughly 4 to 6 days of in-person programming per month for next season, beginning in August. That'll obviously depend on the number of submissions we get and the number of venues that are available to the standards that we expect. But that's kind of the target. Certainly be very surprised if we go above 6 days per week, 6 days per month. Definitely 6 days per week would not be good. Yeah, so thinking basically like maybe one Friday and all Saturdays or something like that. And as we continue to look into in-person events, prioritizing shows, and then following that up with looking for practice or workshop space or jam space, and then classroom space. And then in addition to the COVID protocols, also working in clear kind of agreements with those vendors and partners to uphold their community standards, have clear reporting processes, stuff like that, so that everyone's clear that these are Highwire events and they follow the Highwire code of conduct. So a lot there. I'll pause for a moment just in case there's any questions on that before we get into the regular committee updates or anything that Kristen, Brian, you want to add to that?
I don't have any. Sorry.
I was gonna say, just know if we really do encourage you to get involved with these committees to help us if you have contacts or experience with any of these things. That's always super helpful.
No education updates at this
time. Some more detailed stuff on some of the committees. Operations wise, they now have like a committee meeting schedule. I think it's been working well, trying to do those weekly email updates to those who've been involved in any committees so they know when meetings are coming. As Brian just said, we're really looking to continue to grow those committees, get more people and perspectives involved. We're going to make a specific call for volunteers to help for season 4 Artistic Council, wanting to make sure that we get a dedicated group of people who can look at submissions and kind of actually execute on the original plan for an Artistic Council for at least the in-person aspect of the booking for season 4. As people know, to date, like we haven't really had to make any decisions in the Artistic Council other than verifying that these teams are real and that they haven't done something horrible. But now we'll have a limited supply of space and potentially a demand for that space that exceeds the supply. So we'll have to start being a lot more thoughtful about how we run that process. And operations team is going to meet next week. The focus is going to be on some of those, again, reporting procedures and partnership agreements we have with the venues, things like in-person event insurance, and then what processes we'll have in place to pay staff and performers as the season begins. Programming wise, Brian, you want to talk through this? I can talk it.
Yeah. So right now, the first show that we have scheduled is July 17th in the Lou Room. Michael Furr has started to program shows every Thursday, Friday, Saturday there, and he has offered us one night a month there. It'll be the third Saturday that works for there. We're not looking for any other July dates, simply because we still have our online programming. So we figured we would take this up as a test to get things going. The 17th also happened to be a night which was mostly out-of-town performers online. So that made it easy to not have to like disrupt and rejigger things on the online schedule. So we're really excited about that and about going forward with Michael. But yeah, as we go forward, we really want to have more people to get involved in the artistic council so that we can start to dissect how we're going to schedule things, how we're going to plan things. As Barry talked about a pullback. We're looking at having one night a week where we do nothing online or in person. Um, Number one, because it's been 9 months of programming pretty much every night. And also because as we get to in person, that is a greater time commitment. That is if people's teams are practicing, you have to get there. You're probably going to hang out after. If you're doing shows, you're gonna be spending more time, and we just wanted to pull that time commitment back for people who are doing a lot, and just know that for those of us who volunteer and for people who kind of keep tabs on what we're doing, that there's going to be one night where we're just giving everybody a breather. So we're looking at doing that. So the more voices we can have in kind of splitting up what's going to be in person, what's going to be online, how we're going to do that, the better. We're really excited. We know there's so many people involved in that, and we also think that this is maybe a more appealing time for people to get into these kinds of things as we're uh, breaking through this wall into the online world. So, just give us a holler. The online will probably be mostly focused on teams that are not from Baltimore, teams that are, but that includes that team that is some Baltimore people, some somewhere else. Those kind of mixture of geography, and also some shows that are very specific for online that have a more stylized look. The Improv News Show, which is happening this Saturday at 11:30, is one of those. They are also international, so we're really trying to. I think that'll be more the focus of the online program for season 4 and going forward, as we can offer in-person opportunities to our Baltimore friends, and then maybe some visitors from elsewhere.
Awesome.
Oh, I want one quick
Please,
one
yeah.
quick point.
Yeah.
One quick point on that. As we do that, we will probably be looking at having. There'll probably be fewer, have more than one show per month, just because again capacity will be reduced with how much time people can give, and we also want to work into this the fact that there are a lot of people going back who were working from home are now going back to work in some capacity in an office or whatever. And again, that reduces time commitment that people can give. So if you're a team that has two shows a month, you might be only getting one online in the future. It's something we're going to look at depending on the amount of submissions.
Perfect. On the marketing side of things, I should update this. The initial custom ink fundraiser is not complete. We extended it for a few days. So if you are thinking about buying a shirt or a hoodie, you have 30 hours and 12 minutes to do so. Please do so. There are still available. We still technically need to sell some more to hit our print goal, which will make sure that everybody who ordered gets some. We'll make sure that happens regardless, but we'd like to get as many of the community members to get in on that as possible. And then we also have pins and stickers available. They'll be on an ongoing basis that we'll be fulfilling ourselves. Season 3 posters in progress, and then heaviest focus in our next meeting will be on what we need to do for in-person show marketing for season 4, from everything from event posting and continued social media posting, but with a little bit more of an advance notice, to flyering and other kind of neighborhood-based promotions, depending on where the shows are in each venue. Education, as Krista mentioned, not too much changing here. This meeting later this week as well. But again, I think, as we said last time, continuing to focus on the workshop side of things, delivering unique workshops rather than kind of trying to do intro classes or larger classes online. But a lot of prep work still going into the eventual in-person classes that will happen at some point. So more to come there after education committee meets on that. On anti-racism and anti-oppression. Again, we also have a meeting next week to kind of restructure the next steps here. We had the first Hollaback workshop and have been in kind of active follow-ups with participants from that workshop to build out the implicit bias for improv materials. And then in 2 weeks, we have the bystander intervention training with Hollaback. Definitely a bunch of spots still available for that. So share that with your friends and network. That's, as predicted, going to be increasingly relevant as in-person activities come into focus in not very long. And then we'll work on some other collaborations with Education Committee, Space Committee, to make sure that we're planning for anti-racism and anti-oppression activities and needs across everything else we're doing, especially as we go in person. Development Committee had its first meeting, new committee focused on nonprofit development, which really is about bringing money in. So that's going to cover grants and donations. Initial focus will be on donations since we're still waiting for the finalization of our 501c3. And the first steps here will be kind of figuring out how we can be really transparent with our finances here. Monthly levels of donations that we want to hit certain milestones, like covering our infrastructure costs, covering our staff payments, covering a certain number of scholarships for certain programs. So we can put those on our support page and give the community targets to work towards in terms of the monthly donation figures we're seeing, which are already pretty great, given that we've really done very little effort to try and solicit donations so far. And then think through season 4 costs for the in-person venues to set up a fundraising target specific to season 4, put all that information on the website, and then in parallel begin researching grants and places that we will register as a charitable donation option when that certification comes through. For example, you have to actually submit paperwork to get on Facebook's list of registered donors that people can select when doing fundraisers. And then of course, space and facilities. You can imagine what we're focused on there is season 4 venues and then all the processes around that. Once we are kind of through the process of confirming what the venues will be, we'll have some additional attention put towards tech and setup needs, especially for streaming, and then kind of the operational protocols for each venue. And then of course, beyond that, we'll continue searching for increasingly permanent space and space to cover things like practice in classrooms, which we will not have for season 4, and with the longer term plans there and the associated financial requirements for this. I'll edit this after this. Should say May 2021 financial details. This is what happens when you copy and paste a presentation. Pretty similar to previous months. We got a big bump in workshop payments because of the Hollaback training payment coming through. Donations is technically down, but it's down like $4. So we've been consistently around this 400, 450 mark for a few months now, which is great. Interest, and then expenses, the usual software fees, instructor fees, and bank fees. And actually, netted a decent amount of money this month, putting us a little over $5,000 in the current bank account. And then, last, as we always had on here, continued growth numbers across all of our different social media platforms. These are a couple days old. I think some of these are now up a few from this, but you can see pretty consistent continued growth. No specialized event. 606 on Instagram. No massive viral hit. Just continued steady growth, which is good to see. All right, got through that in a reasonable amount of time. Open up for Q&A, and thanks all for joining as always.
I have a question.
Yay!
Hello.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. I think that you've mentioned this before, but can you remind me when you talk about having a practice space, what that means and who that's for? And do people pay for that?
I don't think we've talked about it actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't missed anything, and
Cool.
The answers are mostly we don't know yet. We have not really spent, to be honest, we have not spent a lot of time thinking about getting a practice space. Other than that, something we think would be great to have, especially in a long-term facility. We have not thought through whether that would be something we would require teams to register and pay for. The only thing we've really talked through, even lightly there, is as we look at some of these venues for season 4, if we get a venue and they say, well, you get us for the whole day, then we might kind of proactively be like, well, we're gonna squeeze every hour out of that day and have, people can book for practice from 9 to noon. We'll have a kids show at noon. We'll have a jam. We'll have 2 workshops. We'll have shows and then a late jam. Right? We're gonna get all of our money's worth. But we have not talked through kind of what the long-term space procedures would be.
Right.
Obviously, Baltimore, people have been used to having free practice space at Biggs facilities. In New York, practice space can be like $20 an hour in a lot of places. So we have not thought through that yet.
I will say Michael Furr did say that Sundays
Oh, yeah, that's
in the room maybe a possibility. I'm not sure if he would charge, because I think he just gets it. Like they're going to be using it for something.
Yeah.
So we did sort of broach the subject about like potentially doing the jam on like a Sunday night.
Right.
And he said that like that would actually potentially work, because during the day they might have practices, things like that. So that could be something that we have available to us sooner than maybe some other stuff. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I forgot he had said that. Yeah, Sundays were kind of like, if it is something that doesn't involve having to staff the bar, he'd be open. And I think he indicated he'll be holding practices there a bunch of Sundays. So it was kind of open to, we can work something out, whether it be a class or workshop or practices.
Yep.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
I have another question.
Yes.
Have you thought about what's happening to Black Joy Fridays for season 4, and like how that works with the programming for in-person shows being on Saturdays and like not doing repeat teams repeating shows in a month?
Yeah. Without speaking too much for the producers of the shows that we have not confirmed things with yet, but the going in plan is that Black Joy Fridays would continue online on Fridays for the 3 Fridays a month that are not produced in Baltimore. And we would the goal is to get a Friday venue available for Block Party. We have not talked to Blue about whether she would prefer moving it to Saturday, for her own producing needs, and so we would have that conversation and figure out what to do. But that's the plan, and I say all of that with the heavy caveat that we haven't actually asked teams about season 4. We haven't done the season 4 process, but that's the intent is to keep Black Joy Fridays going indefinitely, online and or in person, based on interest on being in person.
Cool. Thank you. That's all my questions.
I wish we'd been tallying questions. You certainly are in
Yes.
the lead for community meeting questions. So
I have to
yeah,
run to a
Highwire award for that.
Yeah. I have to run to a class, so I'll catch y'all later.
bye, Brad.
Bye.
Any other questions? See an open mic. Zoom vision. Oh, it's closed. Awesome. Well, if anybody has additional questions, always feel free to email us or reach out on Facebook Messenger, and we'll post this to YouTube shortly. I guess you could comment there too, but email is probably the best to ask us questions. And thank you all for being here. It's always good to have folks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Talk soon.
everyone.
Bye.
Yep.